Chapters 8, 9, and 11 of Walter Bowart's book, Operation Mind Control, The Cryptocracy's Plan to Psychocivilize You, cover the topic of how individuals subjected to MK-Ultra mind control carried out their assignments at the behest of the Cryptocracy. He defines Cryptocracy as a type of government where the real leaders are either hidden or unknown. Chapter 8 of the book is called The Matahari of Mind Control, and it details the story of one of the first documented cases of a woman used by the CIA as a secret agent as part of what the CIA called the Monarch Program. Monarch was one of the 149 sub-projects under the MK-Ultra program, and it was officially begun by the United States Army in the 1960s in an attempt to create Manchurian candidates who could be utilized as sleeper assassins. Hypnosis was used as part of this program to create individuals who could be activated upon receiving a key word or phrase while being in a state of post-hypnotic trance. It was classified as top secret for national security reasons. The name Monarch is in reference to the monarch butterfly. As part of the programming process, a person undergoes trauma through the use of various means, including electroshock. The trauma induces a feeling of lightheadedness in the subject, which can be likened to the feeling of floating or fluttering like a butterfly. There is a symbolic aspect to this as well, because the butterfly undergoes a transformation or metamorphosis from caterpillar to cocoon to a butterfly. In essence, a new being is created. In addition, according to occult symbolism, human souls become butterflies as they search for a new reincarnation after death of the physical body. How is the new being created? Under Project Monarch, an individual is subjected to repeated trauma, which causes structural dissociation of the psyche. This results in a compartmentalization of the mind into multiple personalities. Thus, it creates a state of what was previously called multiple personality syndrome, but is now termed dissociative identity disorder, or DID, by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, Part 5. These multiple personalities are called alters, and during the process of trauma-based mind control, a satanic ritual is performed with the purpose of attaching a particular demon or group of demons to the corresponding alter. One way of understanding this process is to think of it like a complex computer program. A file is created, which we call an alter personality, through the application of torture and trauma, which is repeated and reinforced. Once the file is created, it may be activated by a master commander through the use of a trigger or a specific access code or password. This cue or command is given only by a handler or a programmer who is seen as the master. About 75% of the victims of trauma-based mind control programming are female, since they tend to dissociate more easily than males. These subjects or slaves are then used for such purposes as cover operations, prostitution, and pornography. There is a connection between these subjects and the entertainment industry as well. The subjects may also be used for the purpose of infiltrating a certain group to gather information from it or to act as controlled opposition. There are multiple alters created in the victim of Monarch programming. In addition, these alters contain backup programs, mirrors, and shadows. Most victims have a division of light side or good alters and dark side or bad alters interwoven into their minds. There exists a complicated internal structure inside the mind of the monarch slave, consisting of several different levels, which are controlled in turn by various gatekeepers, or some might see them as demons. The victims are able to see internal images such as trees, the Kabbalistic tree of life, ancient symbols or letters, spiders, webs, mirrors, snakes, clocks, robots, and many others. There are various levels of Monarch programming. These include alpha, beta, delta, theta, omega, and gamma. Briefly, these may be broken down as follows. Alpha is regarded as general or regular programming within the base control personality. Along with this programming comes increased memory retention as well as increased physical strength and visual acuity. It is accomplished by subdividing the victim's personality according to left brain, right brain hemispheres. Beta is sexual programming. Its purpose is to eliminate any moral convictions the subject may have and remove inhibitions regarding sex. It elicits the primitive sexual instincts. Delta is known as killer programming. It was originally developed for training special agents or elite soldiers such as Delta Force or Mossad to prepare them for covert operations. The goal is optimal adrenal input and controlled aggression. Subjects have no fear and are able to carry out assignments in a very systematic manner. Self-destruct or suicide instructions are layered into this level of programming. Theta is called psychic programming. There are two types of individuals who are chosen for trauma-based mind control programming, those of multi-generational satanic families, which Bowart calls bloodliners, and those who are not. Those who are bloodlines are thought to exhibit a greater propensity for having telepathic abilities. However, eventually various forms of electronic mind control systems were developed to augment these abilities, and these included biomedical human telemetry devices or brain implants, and directed energy lasers using microwaves and or electromagnetics. Omega programming contains a self-destructive aspect that is known as code green. It induces behaviors such as suicidal tendencies and or self-mutilation. It may be activated when the victim begins therapy and too much memory is being recovered. Gamma programming is yet another form of system protection. It creates deception programming that is designed to elicit misinformation and to misdirect. It is intertwined with demonology and tends to regenerate itself at a later time if it is not deactivated by a deprogrammer. In Chapter 8 of Bowart's book, the author tells the story of one Candy Jones, whose real name was Jessica Wilcox. She was a sex symbol during World War II and was well known by the troops at the front for providing entertainment for them near the battlefields. After World War II, she served under MK Ultra as a Hypno-Programmed Cia Courier for 12 years. Candy Jones met the man who connected her to the CIA at a military hospital in Manila, where she was taken after she required treatment for several contagious diseases. It wouldn't be until later in her life, however, that this man would offer her a job as a CIA courier. She started a modeling school in New York in 1959. And it was there that she met an FBI agent who asked her to work for him. She was asked to allow the FBI to have some of their mail delivered to her office. Candy was flattered by the request and thought if she agreed, she would be serving her country. She had no idea what was in store for her. After a while, the FBI man asked her if she would be interested in doing some work for the CIA. When she agreed, she was taken to an office in Oakland, California, of a Dr. Gilbert Jensen. This was the beginning of Candy's 12-year adventure, which would eventually lead her to the Far East as a covert CIA operative. Her experiences are detailed in a book published by Playboy Press called The Control of Candy Jones. It was written by her biographer, Donald Bain. Bain wrote that Candy, quote, would be harassed, badgered, and even tortured. Her role was small, a carrier of messages, and the fact that she chose initially to perform such duties for pay renders the misfortunes that befell her as an occupational hazard, end quote. Candy Jones did not know what she was agreeing to when she became a human guinea pig in a secret CIA scientific project on mind control. When in 1973, Candy married an old friend, the host of a New York all-night talk radio show, John Nebel, he noticed she had some strange behavior. Her personality seemed to switch from being cold and distant to warm and loving. John became curious about his wife's behavior and began asking her questions about her past. She revealed her contacts with the FBI and told him from time to time she took little trips for the government. When Candy told John she sometimes suffered from insomnia, he told her that he had heard hypnosis could help with that. Even though he had no training in hypnosis and Candy claimed she could not be hypnotized, in fact, she was a very hypersuggestible subject because though she did not remember it, she had been hypnotized many times during her work for the CIA. Soon John was able to induce trance in her quite rapidly, which helped with her sleep issue. However, one night she began to experience hypnotic regression and relived many traumatic incidents from her childhood. She saw instances of terrible abuse at the hands of her father, and she also recalled that her mother was a very cruel woman who locked her inside a closet as a form of punishment. In the hypnotic state, Candy revealed how she had developed an alter ego named Arlene to deal with the traumatic abuse. This was the cold and distant personality that John had observed on their wedding night. He began to record what his wife said during the hypnotic episodes. During one of these episodes, Candy told her husband about her work with a Dr. Jensen in California and said that both she and Jensen worked for the CIA. John asked her about how Dr. Jensen tried to hypnotize her. He discovered that Jensen often gave Candy injections of what he called vitamins. These were probably hypnotic drugs. John began asking Candy questions about Jensen, but she could not answer them because she had no recall of what had happened in the doctor's office. Donald Bain writes that the major difficulty in dredging up this material is that Candy Jones was programmed by Jensen not to remember, and this programming proved frighteningly effective. After a while, Candy's husband discovered that more and more he was talking to Arlene, the alter, instead of to his wife, Candy. When asked how Dr. Jensen brought Arlene out, Candy said, quote, "He hatched me like a mother hen. He'd say, AG, AG, and she would then experience a severe stomach pain, and then Arlene would take over her personality. If she refused to come out when Jensen called her, she would be injected with drugs. Some of the drugs Candy was given probably included aminazin, reserpin, and salvazin, as well as sodium amytal and sodium pentothal. Part of her programming was to refuse to be treated by any doctor except Jensen. All of the details of Candy's role as a mind-controlled CIA courier were pieced together from hundreds of hours of tapes of her hypnotic monologues. Even to the end of her life, she maintained that she had performed no illegal, immoral, or unpatriotic acts. This was even after she listened to her own voice under hypnosis telling stories of physical torture, illegal entries and exits from countries, and of the most shocking kind of abuse at the hands of the CIA. She refused to get help from a psychiatrist. A large part of her programming was done to protect her not only from foreign intelligence operations, but from everyone else as well. Bowart describes several examples of expeditions that Candy made on behalf of the CIA during her time as a courier. Here is one. She was summoned to San Francisco. Jensen put her through the protocol he always used to summon the alter, Arlene Grant. On this particular trip, Arlene was told to travel to Taiwan. A man met her at the airport and took her to his country home. She stayed for 3 days, not as a guest, but as a prisoner. Candy recalled through questioning under hypnosis that she was hooked up to an electric box of some kind and shocked repeatedly on her shoulders, arms, and breasts. The Chinese man grilled her about the contents of an envelope she had just delivered. She protested that she did not know anything about its contents, but that answer did not satisfy her torturers. When she wouldn't change her story, they began to question her about Dr. Jensen. Arlene said she did not know him. She stuck to her program cover story even though she was severely and repeatedly shocked. Candy later recollected that the torture stopped only after the Chinese man had a telephone conversation with an unknown person. He drove her to the airport and sent her back to San Francisco, where Jensen told her the torture had been a mistake and the result of a typographical error in the message she had carried. In addition to her work as a courier, Candy was also trained at a place called Camp Peary to search a room and use various guerrilla warfare tactics such as the use of arson. She was taught how to use poison lipstick with which to commit suicide, and to use the lipstick to kill someone else by sticking a pin inside of it and then jabbing the intended victim. She also learned how to use acid as a weapon, to fire various weapons, and to write coded messages on her fingernails and cover them with polish. According to Bowart, this training was called Detect, Destroy, and Demolish. Candy's husband discovered that his wife had been programmed to commit suicide once her usefulness to the CIA ended. The Self-Destruct Program was to take place at a hotel in Nassau in 1972, where Arlene was programmed to walk Candy's body to a steep cliff and dive off of it. However, on the very day this was supposed to happen, Candy put off the trip in order to marry John Nebel. Thus, the plan was foiled. To the end of her life, she was never completely free of Arlene. She claimed that whenever she looked into a mirror, she could feel Arlene struggling to take over her mind. In his book, Bowart expresses surprise that John Nebel, Candy herself, and biographer Donald Bain never reveal the real names of Candy's programmers. Bain uses a pseudonym for Dr. Gilbert Jensen. Bowart says that in 1976, both he and Candy Jones appeared on a radio special on mind control. He never met her face to face, however. He says that on the program, both Candy herself and the biographer Donald Bain claim that Candy had only been used as a human guinea pig for experimental purposes. Bowart believes, however, that the records of CIA mind control clearly show that its mind control project had gone far beyond the experimental stage. He was never able to get Candy or her husband to agree to be interviewed by him, nor would they consent to being interviewed by John Marks of the Center for National Security Studies, who wrote the book The Manchurian Candidate. Bowart ends Chapter 8 by asking these questions. What are the real names of the men who programmed Candy? Why weren't they included in the book? What are Candy's and John's political affiliations? Why were they not outraged by Candy's manipulation? Why are they attempting to protect the guilty and justify the rape of Candy's body and mind by using the national security rationale? Why wouldn't they sit still and agree to be interviewed in detail by Bowart? And in the next video, I'm going to talk about Chapter 9 of Bowart's book, which details the story of O, a woman who was subjected to Project Monarch in a similar fashion to Candy Jones.